Welcome to The Weary Researcher, where we explore the mysteries of the mind, one gentle revelation at a time. Tonight, we're embarking on a quiet journey into one of the most unsettling truths about human consciousness. Your brain has been lying to you your entire life, not maliciously, not deliberately, but constantly and convincingly, weaving false stories about your past that feel as real as the pillow beneath your head. I hope this exploration helps you drift peacefully into sleep, though I must warn you, the science we're about to uncover might be just fascinating enough to keep you awake a little longer. If it does, well, at least you'll fall asleep knowing something remarkable about the strange machinery between your ears. Before we begin our descent into the labyrinth of memory, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Whether you are one of my Kiwi listeners from New Zealand, the chap from West Yorkshire in the UK, or my fellow researcher from Portugal, I love getting to see where you're from. So please drop a comment and let me know your location and the time where you are. There's something wonderfully soothing about knowing this little community of curious minds is scattered across the globe, all pondering the same mysteries under different skies. If you find these gentle explorations of science helpful for unwinding, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave this video a like and perhaps subscribe to join our growing family of weary researchers. It helps more people discover these calm corners of curiosity, and it means the world to me. Now, settle in comfortably. Close your eyes if you'd like. We're about to explore why the very foundation of who you think you are might be built on stories your brain invented without you ever knowing it. Picture this. You're absolutely certain you remember your 6th birthday party. You can see the blue frosting on the cake, feel the scratchy fabric of your favourite dress, hear your grandmother's laugh echoing from the kitchen. The memory is vivid, detailed, precious. There's just one problem. That party never happened the way you remember it. In fact, parts of it might never have happened at all. This isn't a philosophical thought experiment or a gentle bedtime riddle. This is the reality of human memory, and it's far stranger than most of us ever imagine. Your brain, that remarkable 3-pound universe nestled in your skull, doesn't work like a video camera recording your life's experiences. Instead, it operates more like a creative writer, constantly editing, embellishing, and sometimes entirely fabricating the stories of your past. Every time you remember something, you're not simply accessing a filed-away recording of what happened. You're actively reconstructing that memory from scattered neural fragments, filling in gaps with educated guesses, current knowledge, and sometimes pure imagination. It's a process so seamless and convincing that you never notice it happening. But neuroscience has revealed something both beautiful and unsettling. The act of remembering is really the act of creative reconstruction. Let's begin with a fundamental truth that might surprise you. Memory is not a thing you have, like a photograph in a drawer or a file on a computer. Memory is something you do, a dynamic process that unfolds differently each time you engage in it. When you recall your first day of school or last week's dinner with friends, your brain doesn't simply retrieve a stored file. Instead, it weaves together fragments of sensory information, emotional impressions, and contextual details that are scattered across different regions of your brain. This reconstruction happens so quickly and automatically that it feels like you're simply accessing a preserved record of the past. But in reality, each act of remembering is a small act of creation. Your brain takes the available neural traces, adds in your current emotional state, incorporates any new information you've learned since the last time you recalled that memory, and presents you with what feels like an authentic reproduction of a past experience. The implications of this are profound and slightly dizzying. It means that every cherished childhood memory, every significant moment that you believe shaped who you are, has been subtly altered by the very act of remembering it. Each time you've recalled your first kiss, your graduation day, or the moment you learned to ride a bicycle, you've potentially changed that memory in small but meaningful ways. This reconstructive nature of memory isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. Your brain evolved to be adaptive, to learn from experience and apply that learning to new situations. A perfectly accurate recording system would be far less useful than the dynamic, interpretive system you actually possess. Your memory system allows you to extract meaning from experiences, to connect past events with present circumstances, and to imagine possible futures based on what you've learned. But this adaptive flexibility comes with a cost. The same mechanisms that make memory useful and meaningful also make it unreliable. They open the door to distortions, fabrications, and entirely false memories that can feel as authentic as any genuine recollection. Consider the neuroscience behind this process. When you first experience something, different aspects of that experience are encoded in different regions of your brain. The visual details might be processed in your occipital cortex, the sounds in your auditory cortex, the emotions in your amygdala, and the spatial context in your hippocampus. These various components don't form a single, unified memory trace. Instead, they create a distributed network of associations that can be reassembled later. The hippocampus acts as a kind of librarian, creating an index that links these scattered components together. But like any librarian, it's not perfect. Sometimes it misfiled information, creates connections between unrelated experiences, or loses track of certain details altogether. When you later try to remember that experience, your hippocampus attempts to gather all the relevant pieces and present them as a coherent narrative. This process of memory consolidation, where experiences are gradually transferred from temporary storage in the hippocampus to more permanent storage in the cortex, is particularly vulnerable to distortion. During consolidation, memories become integrated with your existing knowledge and expectations. Details that don't fit your current understanding might be altered or discarded. Gaps in the record might be filled with plausible but inaccurate information. Even more remarkably, every time you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily unstable and must be reconsolidated. This means that the very act of remembering can change what you remember. If you're in a different emotional state when you recall something, that emotional colouring can become permanently incorporated into the memory. If someone provides new information about an event while you're remembering it, that information can become seamlessly woven into your recollection. This process of reconsolidation reveals one of the most counterintuitive aspects of memory. The memories you recall most often may actually be the least accurate. Each time you tell the story of how you met your partner or describe your most embarrassing moment, you potentially alter that memory slightly. Over time, these small changes can accumulate, transforming the original experience into something quite different. The research on this phenomenon is both fascinating and unsettling. Studies have shown that people can develop detailed, emotionally rich memories of events that never occurred. These false memories don't feel different from real ones. They come with the same sense of familiarity, the same conviction, the same emotional resonance that characterizes genuine recollections. In one groundbreaking study, researchers were able to implant false childhood memories in adults by simply having family members describe fictional events as if they had really happened. After just a few sessions of being told about getting lost in a shopping mall as a child, about a quarter of participants developed detailed memories of this experience that had never occurred. They could describe what the mall looked like, how frightened they felt, what their parents said when they were found. These memories felt completely authentic to the people experiencing them. This malleability of memory has profound implications that extend far beyond the laboratory. It affects how we understand ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we make sense of our lives. It challenges the fundamental assumption that our memories provide a reliable record of our personal history. Think about the stories you tell about yourself, the experiences that you believe have shaped your personality and worldview. How many of those memories are accurate representations of what actually happened? How many have been subtly altered by the passage of time, by subsequent experiences, by the simple act of remembering them? The honest answer is that you can never really know. This uncertainty isn't meant to be distressing. In fact, there's something oddly liberating about recognizing the constructed nature of memory. It means that the past isn't fixed and immutable. It means that your understanding of yourself and your history can continue to evolve. It means that you have more agency in shaping your personal narrative than you might have imagined. The reconstructive nature of memory also helps explain why different people can have radically different recollections of the same event. It's not that one person is lying or has a better memory than the other. It's that each person's brain is reconstructing the experience based on their own unique perspective, emotional state, and subsequent experiences. The family gathering that you remember as warm and joyful might be recalled by your sibling as tense and uncomfortable, and both memories could be equally true from the perspective of each person's reconstructive memory system. This subjectivity of memory extends to collective experiences as well. Historical events, cultural moments, and shared experiences are remembered differently by different groups of people, not because of intentional distortion or bias, but because memory itself is inherently interpretive and reconstructive. Understanding the nature of memory reconstruction also sheds light on why certain types of memories are particularly prone to distortion. Childhood memories, for instance, are especially malleable because they were encoded by a developing brain and have been subject to decades of reconsolidation. Emotional memories can be highly vivid, but also highly inaccurate because strong emotions can interfere with the encoding process while simultaneously making the resulting memories feel more real and significant. Traumatic memories present a particularly complex case. While trauma can sometimes result in unusually accurate memories for certain details, it can also lead to significant distortions, gaps, and even entirely false recollections. The same emotional intensity that makes traumatic experiences so memorable can also disrupt the normal memory consolidation process, leading to fragmented, distorted, or fabricated memories. The social context of remembering also plays a crucial role in memory reconstruction. When we remember events in conversation with others, their recollections can influence and alter our own. Details that we hadn't previously remembered might suddenly seem familiar when mentioned by someone else. Conversely, aspects of our own memories that aren't corroborated by others might fade or be replaced by the more socially validated version of events. This social influence on memory helps explain why family stories often converge over time, with different family members gradually developing similar recollections of events that they might have remembered quite differently initially. It also explains why eyewitness testimony can be so unreliable, particularly when witnesses have had opportunities to discuss their observations with each other or with investigators. The study of memory reconstruction has revealed that confidence in a memory is not a reliable indicator of its accuracy. People can be absolutely certain about details that are completely false and uncertain about details that are perfectly accurate. This disconnect between confidence and accuracy is one of the most important findings in memory research, with significant implications for legal proceedings, therapeutic practices, and everyday decision-making. As we drift deeper into this exploration of memory's mysteries, it becomes clear that the question isn't whether your memories are accurate. The question is how inaccurate they are, and whether that inaccuracy matters. In many cases, the emotional truth of a memory may be more important than its factual accuracy. The way you remember your childhood may not reflect exactly what happened, but it reflects something meaningful about how those experiences affected you and continue to shape your understanding of yourself. This tension between accuracy and meaning is at the heart of the human experience. We are storytelling creatures, constantly weaving narratives that help us make sense of our lives and our place in the world. Our memory system, with all its flaws and fabrications, is perfectly designed for this storytelling function. It doesn't give us perfect records of the past, but it gives us meaningful stories that help us navigate the present and imagine the future. The science of memory reconstruction reminds us that we are all, in a very real sense, fictional characters in stories of our own creation. This isn't a cause for despair or existential crisis. It's simply a recognition of the creative, interpretive nature of human consciousness. Your brain isn't lying to you maliciously. It's doing something far more interesting. It's helping you create a coherent, meaningful narrative from the chaotic flow of experience. As we continue our gentle exploration of memory's mysteries, we'll discover how this reconstructive process can go awry, creating not just subtle distortions, but entirely false memories that feel as real as anything you've ever experienced. We'll explore the conditions that make false memories more likely, the techniques that can implant them, and the profound implications this has for how we understand truth, identity, and the nature of human experience. But for now, as you lie there contemplating the malleable nature of your own memories, perhaps you can find some peace in the recognition that memory is not about perfect preservation of the past, but about the ongoing creation of meaning. Your memories, accurate or not, are part of the continuous story you tell yourself about who you are and where you've been. And like all good stories, their power lies not in their literal truth, but in their ability to illuminate something deeper about the human experience. The brain between your ears is indeed lying to you, but it's doing so in service of something greater, the endless human project of making meaning from the beautiful chaos of existence. And perhaps in recognizing this gentle deception, we can begin to appreciate the remarkable creativity of the mind that makes us who we are. As we settle deeper into this exploration of memory's peculiar nature, let's turn our attention to one of the most startling discoveries in psychological research: the ease with which entirely false memories can be planted in the human mind. These aren't subtle distortions of real events or minor embellishments to existing memories. These are complete fabrications, detailed recollections of experiences that never happened, yet feel as authentic and emotionally resonant as any genuine memory you possess. The phenomenon was first systematically studied in the 1990s through what became known as the lost in the mall technique. Researchers would approach adult participants and, with the help of the family members, present them with 4 childhood memories. 3 were real events that had actually occurred, carefully verified with relatives. The 4th was a complete fabrication, typically involving getting lost in a shopping centre as a young child. The false memory wasn't presented as obviously fictional. Instead, it was woven into the fabric of the person's family history with careful attention to plausible details. Researchers would describe the specific mall the family used to visit, mention family members who were supposedly present, and include realistic details about what the child was wearing or how they were eventually found. What happened next was both fascinating and deeply unsettling. After just a few sessions of being encouraged to remember this fictional event, about 25% of participants developed detailed, vivid memories of being lost in the mall. They could describe the fear they felt, the layout of the shopping centre, the relief when they were reunited with their family. These weren't vague impressions or uncertain recollections. They were rich, emotionally charged memories, complete with sensory details and narrative structure. The participants weren't lying or playing along with the experiment. They genuinely believed these experiences had occurred. When debriefed afterward, many were shocked to learn that these memories were entirely fabricated. Some even insisted that the memories must be real despite being told they were false. The false memories had become so thoroughly integrated into their sense of personal history that they felt more authentic than many genuine childhood recollections. This research opened the door to understanding just how malleable human memory truly is. Subsequent studies have shown that false memories can be implanted for a wide variety of experiences, from mundane events like spilling punch at a wedding to traumatic incidents like being attacked by an animal. The more plausible the false event, the more likely people are to develop detailed memories of it. Children are particularly susceptible to false memory implantation, not because they're less intelligent or more gullible, but because their memory systems are still developing. Young children have difficulty distinguishing between different sources of information. They might not clearly differentiate between something they experienced directly, something they imagined, something they saw in a movie, or something an adult described to them. This vulnerability has profound implications for how we approach situations involving children's testimony. Repeated questioning, leading questions, or exposure to suggestive information can inadvertently create false memories in young minds. A child might initially have no memory of a particular event, but through well-intentioned but misguided interviewing techniques, they might develop detailed recollections of experiences that never occurred. The process by which false memories form reveals something remarkable about the brain's commitment to narrative coherence. When presented with fragments of information about a supposed past event, your mind doesn't simply file away these details as isolated facts. Instead, it begins the process of constructing a coherent story, filling in gaps with plausible details, adding emotional colouring that seems appropriate to the situation, and creating the rich sensory backdrop that characterises genuine memories. This construction process often happens outside of conscious awareness. You don't deliberately decide to create a false memory. Instead, your brain, encountering information about a past event, automatically begins the work of memory construction. It searches for relevant knowledge and experiences, draws connections between disparate pieces of information, and gradually builds what feels like an authentic recollection. The emotional component of false memories is particularly striking. People don't just intellectually accept that false events occurred. They experience genuine emotional responses when recalling these fabricated experiences. They might feel the fear of being lost, the embarrassment of an accident, or the joy of a family celebration that never happened. These emotions aren't manufactured or artificial. They're the natural result of the brain's memory construction process, which includes emotional colouring as an integral part of creating coherent recollections. This emotional authenticity helps explain why false memories can be so persistent and convincing. When you recall an event and experience genuine emotions associated with it, those feelings serve as confirmation that the memory must be real. After all, why would you have such strong emotional responses to something that never happened? This emotional validation creates a feedback loop that strengthens false memories over time, making them increasingly resistant to correction. The social context in which memories are formed and recalled also plays a crucial role in false memory creation. When trusted individuals, particularly authority figures or family members, provide information about past events, we're naturally inclined to accept their accounts as accurate. This trust can be exploited, either intentionally or inadvertently, to implant false memories. Family dynamics are particularly important in this process. When parents or siblings describe events from childhood, their accounts can gradually reshape our own memories of those experiences. Details that we hadn't previously remembered might suddenly seem familiar when mentioned by family members. Over time, these externally provided details can become fully integrated into our personal recollections, creating memories that blend genuine experiences with information provided by others. The phenomenon of false memory creation has significant implications beyond the laboratory. In therapeutic settings, well-meaning counselors might inadvertently implant false memories through suggestive questioning or by encouraging patients to recover supposedly repressed memories. The assumption that traumatic experiences are often forgotten and must be actively retrieved can lead to the creation of detailed false memories of abuse or other traumatic events that never occurred. This doesn't mean that recovered memories are always false or that childhood trauma doesn't occur. Rather, it highlights the need for extreme caution when dealing with memories that emerge through therapeutic techniques designed to uncover hidden or repressed experiences. The same suggestive processes that can help people access genuine, forgotten memories can also create convincing, false ones. The legal system faces similar challenges. Eyewitness testimony, particularly from children, can be contaminated by investigative procedures that inadvertently implant false memories. Leading questions, repeated interviews, or exposure to information about the alleged crime can all contribute to the creation of false memories that feel completely authentic to the witness. Perhaps most unsettling is the recognition that false memory implantation doesn't require elaborate deception or manipulation. Sometimes it can occur through casual conversation, media exposure, or even dreams that are later misremembered as real experiences. The boundary between imagination and memory is far more porous than most people realize. This porousness helps explain why certain types of false memories are particularly common. Events that are emotionally significant, personally relevant, or frequently discussed in media or social contexts are more likely to be incorporated into personal memory, even if they never actually happened to the individual. The brain's pattern matching system might identify similarities between external information and personal experiences, gradually blending them into what feels like an authentic personal memory. The study of false memory creation has also revealed important insights about memory confidence. People are often most confident about memories that are actually false, particularly when those memories have been repeatedly recalled or discussed. This confidence accuracy paradox occurs because the act of remembering strengthens neural pathways associated with the memory, regardless of whether the memory is accurate. A frequently recalled false memory can feel more familiar and thus more authentic than a rarely accessed genuine memory. Understanding false memory formation also sheds light on larger questions about the nature of truth and personal identity. If our most fundamental memories can be fabricated, what does this mean for our sense of self? How do we distinguish between authentic experiences and constructed ones when both feel equally real? These questions don't have simple answers, but they point to the remarkable flexibility and creativity of human consciousness. Your brain's ability to construct convincing false memories is the same ability that allows you to imagine possible futures, to empathize with others' experiences, and to create meaning from the chaos of existence. The line between memory and imagination, between experience and construction, may be less clear than we'd like to believe. This blurring of boundaries isn't necessarily problematic. In many contexts, the emotional and psychological truth of a memory may be more important than its factual accuracy. A false memory of parental love or childhood happiness might contribute positively to psychological well-being, even if the specific events never occurred as remembered. The meaning we derive from our memories may matter more than their literal truth. As we continue to explore the strange landscape of human memory, we'll discover that false memories aren't just laboratory curiosities or therapeutic complications. They're part of the broader phenomenon of how human consciousness constructs reality from the raw material of experience. In recognizing the ease with which false memories can be created, we gain insight into the fundamentally constructive nature of all memory, and by extension, all human experience. The brain that's lying to you isn't being deceptive. It's being creative, constantly weaving the threads of experience into the tapestry of personal narrative. And while this creativity can sometimes lead to fabrication, it's also what makes human consciousness so remarkably rich, flexible, and meaningful. Your false memories, like your genuine ones, are part of the ongoing story you tell yourself about who you are and where you've been in this strange, beautiful journey through existence. As you lie there contemplating the malleability of your own recollections, let's drift into an even more peculiar territory, the realm where entire groups of people share identical false memories. This phenomenon, known as the Mandela Effect, reveals something profound about how our minds can collectively construct alternate versions of reality that feel more authentic than the truth itself. Picture this gentle scenario. You're absolutely certain that the beloved children's books about a family of bears were called the Berenstain Bears. You can visualize the title on the spine, remember the way your parents pronounced it. Recall countless afternoons spent reading about their adventures. There's just one small problem. The books were actually called the Berenstain Bears with an A instead of an E. Not only are you wrong, but millions of other people share your exact same false memory. This isn't a case of poor spelling or casual misremembering. People don't just think the name might have been different. They have vivid, detailed memories of seeing Berenstain printed on book covers, of discussing the pronunciation with friends, of noticing the difference between the spelling of the name and other similar words. These memories feel completely authentic, yet they describe something that never existed. The Mandela Effect gets its name from an even more dramatic example of collective false memory. Fiona Broome, a paranormal researcher, discovered that she had vivid memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. She could recall news coverage of his death, footage of his funeral, even a speech from his widow about his passing. The problem, of course, is that Mandela didn't die in prison. He was released in 1990 and went on to become South Africa's president, living until 2013. What made this discovery so unsettling wasn't just that Broome was wrong, but that when she shared her false memory online, thousands of other people responded with identical recollections. They too remembered news reports of Mandela's death in prison. They too had clear memories of the global mourning that followed. They too were shocked to learn that these detailed memories described events that had never occurred. This collective aspect of false memory reveals something fascinating about how our minds construct reality. We don't just create false memories in isolation. We can share them, reinforce them, and collectively maintain them even in the face of contradictory evidence. The social nature of memory means that false recollections can spread through communities like whispered secrets, gaining authenticity through repetition and shared belief. Consider some other common examples of the Mandela Effect. Many people remember the Monopoly man wearing a monocle, complete with detailed recollections of his sophisticated appearance and the way the eyepiece caught the light. Yet if you examine any Monopoly game, you'll find that rich Uncle Pennybags has never worn a monocle. The mental image that millions of people share is entirely fabricated, yet it feels more real than the actual character design. Similarly, countless individuals have vivid memories of a 1990s movie called Shazam, starring the comedian Sinbad as a genie. They can describe scenes from the film, remember renting it from video stores, recall watching it with friends or family. Some even remember specific dialogue or plot points. The movie, however, never existed. There was a similar film called Kazam starring Shaquille O'Neal, but the Sinbad version exists only in the collective false memory of thousands of people. These shared false memories often involve popular culture, brand names, and widely recognized figures, precisely because these are the elements of our culture that are most frequently discussed, referenced, and thought about. The more often we encounter information about something, the more opportunities there are for small distortions to creep in and gradually transform our recollections. The mechanism behind collective false memories involves the same reconstructive processes we've been exploring, but amplified by social interaction and cultural reinforcement. When you encounter a slightly altered version of something familiar, your brain doesn't necessarily flag it as incorrect. Instead, it might incorporate this new information into your existing memory, subtly altering your recollection in the process. This alteration can then spread through social networks as people discuss their memories with others. If someone mentions remembering the Monopoly man's monocle, others might suddenly remember this detail too, even if they had never noticed it before. The social validation of shared memory creates a feedback loop that strengthens false recollections and makes them increasingly resistant to correction. The digital age has accelerated this process dramatically. Online communities can form around shared false memories, with thousands of people contributing their own recollections and reinforcing each other's mistaken beliefs. These communities often develop elaborate theories to explain discrepancies between their memories and documented reality, sometimes proposing parallel dimensions or timeline shifts rather than accepting that their collective memory might be flawed. This resistance to correction reveals something profound about the relationship between memory and identity. Our recollections aren't just neutral records of past events, they're integral to our sense of self and our understanding of the world. When evidence contradicts our memories, we don't simply update our recollections. We often experience a kind of cognitive dissonance that can be deeply unsettling. The emotional investment we have in our memories means that correcting false recollections can feel like an attack on our fundamental sense of reality. This is particularly true for collective false memories, which carry the additional weight of social validation. When thousands of people share the same false memory, it can feel more credible than documented evidence to the contrary. Children are particularly susceptible to developing shared false memories because their memory systems are still developing and they're heavily influenced by social cues and authority figures. A false detail mentioned by a teacher, repeated by classmates, or depicted in educational materials can quickly become integrated into children's recollections of historical events or scientific facts. This susceptibility extends into adulthood, where professional and social contexts can shape collective memories in subtle but significant ways. Workplace cultures, family dynamics, and social groups all contribute to the formation and maintenance of shared false memories about past events, decisions, or experiences. The study of collective false memories has revealed that confidence in memory accuracy actually increases when memories are shared with others, even when those memories are completely false. The social validation of having others confirm your recollections creates a false sense of reliability that can make people more certain about details that are entirely fabricated. This confidence through consensus effect helps explain why collective false memories can be so persistent and why people often react with genuine surprise and disbelief when presented with evidence that contradicts their shared recollections. The social reinforcement of false memories creates a kind of echo chamber where mistaken beliefs become increasingly entrenched through repetition and mutual validation. The implications of collective false memory extend far beyond amusing mix-ups about cartoon characters or brand names. They reveal fundamental aspects of how human societies construct and maintain shared realities. Our collective understanding of history, culture, and even current events is shaped by the same memory processes that can create false recollections about childhood books or movie titles. This doesn't mean that all shared memories are false, or that we can't trust collective recollections. Rather, it highlights the importance of external verification and documentation in maintaining accurate records of important events and information. The human tendency to collectively construct false memories is a reminder that memory, even when shared by many people, is not always a reliable guide to what actually occurred. The phenomenon of collective false memory also sheds light on how cultural myths and legends might develop over time. Stories that begin as minor distortions or embellishments can gradually transform through repeated telling and social reinforcement until they become widely accepted as historical fact. The same processes that create false memories about brand names or movie titles might also contribute to the formation of cultural narratives that persist across generations. As we explore these collective fabrications of memory, it's worth noting that they often involve details that seem plausible or that fit with our expectations about how things should be. The Monopoly Man's monocle makes sense given his wealthy, sophisticated character. The Berenstain spelling seems more natural to English speakers than Berenstain. These false memories often feel more correct than the actual reality, which may explain why they're so readily accepted and maintained. This tendency for false memories to align with our expectations reveals another important aspect of how memory reconstruction works. Our brains don't just fill in gaps with random information. They use our existing knowledge, cultural assumptions, and pattern recognition systems to create plausible details that fit with what we think should have happened. The social media age has created new opportunities for collective false memories to form and spread. Viral posts, memes, and shared content can quickly establish false facts that become integrated into collective memory. The speed and reach of digital communication means that false information can spread faster and wider than ever before, potentially creating shared false memories on a global scale. Understanding collective false memories also provides insight into how misinformation and propaganda can be effective. When false information is repeated frequently enough and endorsed by enough people, it can become integrated into collective memory in ways that make it resistant to correction. The social validation of shared belief can override evidence-based reasoning, creating communities of people who genuinely remember things that never happened. This isn't to suggest that people who experience collective false memories are gullible or unintelligent. These phenomena affect everyone, regardless of education level, intelligence, or critical thinking skills. They're a natural consequence of how human memory works in social contexts, revealing the deeply interconnected nature of individual and collective consciousness. The beauty of recognizing collective false memories lies not in their accuracy, but in what they reveal about the shared nature of human experience. Even when we're wrong, we're often wrong together, creating communities of shared meaning and understanding. These false memories become part of our cultural fabric, connecting us through common experiences even when those experiences are entirely fabricated. Perhaps there's something oddly comforting in knowing that you're not alone in your false memories. The millions of people who remember the Berenstain Bears or the Monopoly Man's monocle are part of an inadvertent community, sharing not just false recollections but the deeply human experience of constructing meaning from imperfect information. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might find yourself wondering about your own memories, both individual and shared. Which of your most cherished recollections might be partly or entirely false? Which of your certainties about the past might be collective fabrications that feel more real than reality itself? These questions don't have definitive answers, but they invite a kind of gentle humility about the nature of memory and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we've been. The brain that's creating these false memories, both individual and collective, isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, creating coherent, meaningful narratives from incomplete information, filling in gaps with plausible details, and connecting us to others through shared stories and experiences. Whether those stories are factually accurate may be less important than their ability to create meaning, foster connection, and help us navigate the complex social world we inhabit. In recognizing the prevalence of false memories, both personal and collective, we gain a deeper appreciation for the creative, interpretive nature of human consciousness. We are all, in a very real sense, collaborative fiction writers, working together to construct the stories that define our shared reality. And while these stories may not always be true in a literal sense, they reveal something profound about the human need to create meaning, connection, and understanding in a world that is often chaotic and incomprehensible. As we drift deeper into this exploration of memory's deceptions, let's turn our attention to one of the most sobering applications of false memory research: the courtroom. Here, where justice hangs in the balance and lives can be forever altered by a single verdict, the unreliable nature of human memory takes on profound and sometimes tragic significance. Picture a witness taking the stand, their hand raised in solemn oath, swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They speak with absolute conviction about what they saw, their voice steady, their demeanour sincere. The jury listens intently, weighing their testimony against the fate of the accused. Yet what this witness believes to be the unvarnished truth may be nothing more than an elaborate fiction constructed by their own mind. The statistics surrounding eyewitness testimony are both staggering and deeply troubling. Of the hundreds of individuals who have been exonerated through DNA evidence after wrongful convictions, more than 3/4 of these cases involved mistaken eyewitness identification. These aren't cases of deliberate perjury or malicious intent. These are sincere, well-meaning individuals whose memories have led them astray, sometimes with devastating consequences. Consider the case of Ronald Cotton, a man whose life was forever changed by the sincere but mistaken memory of a sexual assault victim named Jennifer Thompson. On a summer night in 1984, Thompson was attacked in her apartment. During the assault, she made a conscious effort to study her attacker's face, telling herself that if she survived, she would be able to identify him. She was determined to be the perfect witness. When presented with a photo lineup, Thompson selected Cotton's picture. She was certain. At a physical lineup, she again identified Cotton, this time with even greater confidence. Her testimony at trial was compelling and unwavering. She looked directly at Cotton and declared with absolute certainty that he was the man who had attacked her. The jury believed her, and Cotton was sentenced to life in prison. For over a decade, Cotton maintained his innocence from behind bars. He appealed his conviction, sought new trials, and steadfastly insisted that Thompson had made a mistake. His protestations fell on deaf ears. After all, how could such a confident, detailed eyewitness account be wrong? Thompson herself never wavered in her certainty, even as Cotton's supporters argued for his innocence. It wasn't until DNA evidence became available that the truth emerged. After 11 years in prison, Cotton was exonerated. The real perpetrator was identified through the same DNA evidence that cleared Cotton. Not only had an innocent man spent over a decade behind bars, but the actual criminal had remained free, eventually committing additional crimes while Cotton sat wrongfully imprisoned. The aftermath of Cotton's exoneration was perhaps as remarkable as the case itself. When Thompson learned that she had been mistaken, she was devastated. The memory that had felt so certain, so clear, so undeniably real, had been false. She eventually formed an unlikely friendship with Cotton, and together they became advocates for criminal justice reform, speaking about the fallibility of eyewitness testimony and the need for corroborating evidence. Thompson's experience illustrates something crucial about false memories in legal contexts. They don't feel different from accurate ones. She wasn't uncertain or hesitant about her identification. She was absolutely convinced, and that conviction grew stronger over time as she repeated her testimony and reinforced her memory through the legal process. The very act of testifying may have made her false memory more vivid and certain. This case also demonstrates how the investigative process itself can contribute to false memory formation. Each time Thompson viewed photos or participated in lineups, she was potentially altering her memory of the attack. The face she selected from the initial photo array may have gradually replaced her original memory of the attacker, creating a false but increasingly confident recollection. The phenomenon of unconscious transference helps explain how such mistakes occur. Sometimes witnesses remember faces they've seen in other contexts and unconsciously transfer them to the crime scene. A face glimpsed in a newspaper, on television, or in a previous photo lineup can become associated with the traumatic event, creating a false but convincing memory of identification. Cross-racial identification presents additional challenges, as people often have more difficulty distinguishing between faces of different racial backgrounds than their own. This isn't a matter of prejudice or bias, but rather a result of how our visual processing systems develop through experience. The lack of familiarity with facial features outside our own racial group can lead to higher rates of misidentification. The stress and trauma associated with criminal events also affect memory formation in complex ways. While intense emotions can sometimes enhance memory for certain details, they can also impair the encoding of other information. The victim's attention might be focused on a weapon rather than the perpetrator's face, or the emotional trauma might interfere with the normal memory consolidation process. Post-event information can further contaminate eyewitness memories. Conversations with other witnesses, exposure to media coverage, or discussions with investigators can all introduce new details that become integrated into the original memory. A witness might initially be uncertain about a detail, but after hearing another witness describe it, they might suddenly remember that aspect of the event. The confidence-accuracy relationship in eyewitness testimony is particularly troubling. Research has consistently shown that witness confidence is not a reliable indicator of memory accuracy. People can be completely certain about details that are entirely wrong and uncertain about details that are perfectly accurate. Yet juries tend to place great weight on witness confidence, viewing certain testimony as more credible than hesitant recollections. Leading questions during police interviews can also shape witness memories in significant ways. The way a question is phrased can influence not just the answer given, but the underlying memory itself. A question like, "How fast was the blue car going when it ran the red light?" presupposes that the car was blue, and that it ran a red light, potentially implanting these details in the witness's memory, even if they weren't originally there. Children present particularly complex challenges in legal contexts. While they can be accurate witnesses, they're also more susceptible to suggestion and false memory implantation. Their desire to please authority figures, combined with their developing cognitive abilities and limited understanding of the consequences of their testimony, makes them vulnerable to inadvertent memory manipulation. Here, the phenomenon of false confessions also relates to memory distortion. In some cases, prolonged interrogation can lead suspects to develop false memories of committing crimes they didn't perpetrate. The psychological pressure of interrogation, combined with suggestions about how the crime might have occurred, can create detailed false memories that feel authentic to the person experiencing them. DNA evidence has been revelatory in exposing the extent of memory-based errors in the criminal justice system. Each exoneration, based on genetic evidence, represents not just a wrongful conviction, but a demonstration of how persuasive false memories can be. These cases show that even multiple witnesses can share similar false memories of the same event, creating seemingly corroborating testimony that is entirely inaccurate. The implications extend beyond individual cases to challenge fundamental assumptions about the legal system. The adversarial nature of trials, where witnesses are expected to provide definitive testimony about past events, conflicts with what we now know about the reconstructive nature of memory. The legal system's emphasis on certainty and consistency may actually encourage witnesses to express false confidence in uncertain memories. Reforms aimed at reducing eyewitness errors have been implemented in many jurisdictions. Double-blind lineup procedures, where neither the witness nor the administrator knows which person is the suspect, can reduce unconscious bias. Sequential rather than simultaneous presentation of lineup members can decrease the tendency to make relative judgments. Video recording of identification procedures provides a record of how confident witnesses were at the time of identification, before their certainty might increase through repeated testimony. Yet these reforms, while helpful, cannot entirely eliminate the problem of false memories in legal contexts. The fundamental issue remains: human memory is not a reliable recording device, and the very process of remembering can alter what is remembered. No procedure can completely protect against the sincere but mistaken testimony of witnesses whose memories have been contaminated by the normal processes of memory reconstruction. The recognition of memory's fallibility has also influenced therapeutic practices, particularly in cases involving recovered memories of childhood trauma. While genuine memories of abuse can sometimes be forgotten and later recalled, the same techniques used to recover authentic memories can also implant false ones. The challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine, recovered memories and those that have been inadvertently created through suggestive therapeutic practices. Some therapeutic approaches that were once widely accepted, such as recovered memory therapy, have been largely abandoned due to their potential for creating false memories of traumatic events. The realization that well-meaning therapists could inadvertently implant detailed false memories of abuse led to a fundamental re-evaluation of how memory works in therapeutic contexts. The debate over recovered memories highlights the tension between believing survivors of trauma and recognizing the fallibility of memory. Both perspectives contain important truths. Childhood abuse does occur and is often not reported or remembered clearly, but memories can also be false or distorted. The challenge is developing approaches that support genuine survivors while avoiding the creation of false memories that can destroy families and lead to wrongful accusations. Historical events and collective memories also intersect with legal and social justice issues. Communities might develop shared false memories about past events, discrimination, or injustices that shape their understanding of current situations. While the emotional and social truth of these memories may be significant, their factual accuracy can affect legal proceedings and policy decisions. The study of false memories in legal contexts has also revealed the importance of corroborating evidence. Physical evidence, documents, and objective records provide crucial checks against the fallibility of human memory. The most reliable legal conclusions often come from combining witness testimony with independent verification, recognizing that memory alone, no matter how sincere or detailed, may not be sufficient for determining truth. As we consider these sobering realities of memory in legal settings, it's important to note that this doesn't mean all eyewitness testimony is false or that victims' accounts should be dismissed. Many witnesses provide accurate and valuable testimony that helps ensure justice. The goal is not to eliminate reliance on human memory, but to understand its limitations and supplement it with other forms of evidence whenever possible. The intersection of memory research and legal practice continues to evolve as our understanding of how memory works becomes more sophisticated. Expert testimony about memory's limitations is now more commonly admitted in courts, helping juries understand the potential for honest mistakes in witness accounts. Educational programs for law enforcement focus on interviewing techniques that minimize the risk of memory contamination. These developments represent a gradual recognition that the traditional legal emphasis on witness certainty and consistency may need to be balanced with an understanding of memory's reconstructive nature. The goal is not to undermine the pursuit of justice, but to make it more accurate by accounting for the realities of how human memory actually works. The stories of wrongful convictions based on false memories serve as powerful reminders of the stakes involved in understanding memory's limitations. Each case represents not just a failure of the legal system, but a human tragedy, an innocent person imprisoned, A victim's trauma compounded by learning their memory was false. A real perpetrator free to commit additional crimes, and families and communities affected by these cascading consequences. Yet these same stories also demonstrate the resilience of the human spirit and the possibility of redemption. Many exonerees have found ways to move forward with their lives, often becoming advocates for justice reform. Victims who learn their memories were false sometimes find the courage to confront this reality and work toward preventing similar mistakes in the future. The recognition of memory's fallibility in legal contexts ultimately serves justice by making it more accurate. When we understand that even sincere, detailed, and confident testimony can be wrong, we can develop systems that account for this possibility. This doesn't mean abandoning reliance on human testimony, but rather supplementing it with other forms of evidence and procedures designed to minimize the risk of memory-based errors. As you lie there contemplating these weighty matters, perhaps there's something oddly comforting in recognizing that the fallibility of memory is a shared human condition. The witnesses who provide false testimony, the victims who make mistaken identifications, and the suspects who develop false confessions are all experiencing normal, if tragic, consequences of how human memory works. Understanding these limitations is the first step toward creating more just and accurate systems for determining truth and ensuring that justice is truly served. The brain that creates false memories in legal contexts is the same brain that allows us to learn from experience, adapt to new situations, and create meaning from the chaos of existence. Its fallibility is inseparable from its remarkable capabilities. In recognizing this paradox, we can approach questions of memory and truth with both appropriate skepticism and compassionate understanding of the very human limitations that make such errors possible. Now, as we drift deeper into this exploration of memory's peculiar landscape, let's turn our attention to a particularly vulnerable population: children. Their developing minds, still learning to distinguish between reality and imagination, provide a window into how false memories form and flourish in ways that can be both fascinating and deeply concerning. Picture a 7-year-old sitting in a comfortable chair, speaking earnestly to a kind adult who nods encouragingly at every word. The child describes, in vivid detail, a frightening experience that supposedly happened months ago. They remember the colour of someone's shirt, the sound of footsteps, the feeling of being scared. Their account is consistent across multiple tellings, filled with sensory details that make it feel authentic and compelling. The only problem is that this traumatic event never occurred. This isn't a hypothetical scenario, but a reality that researchers have documented repeatedly in laboratory settings. Children, it turns out, are remarkably susceptible to developing false memories, not because they're dishonest or have poor memories, but because their cognitive systems are still developing in ways that make them vulnerable to suggestion and confusion about the sources of their mental experiences. The developing brain of a child operates differently from an adult's in several crucial ways. Young children have difficulty with what psychologists call source monitoring, the ability to distinguish between different origins of information. Was that image from a dream, a story someone told them, a movie they watched, or something they actually experienced? For adults, these distinctions are usually clear, though not always accurate. For children, the boundaries between these different sources of mental content can be remarkably fluid. This fluidity isn't a weakness, but rather a natural part of cognitive development. Children's minds are extraordinarily open and adaptive, constantly absorbing information from their environment and integrating it into their understanding of the world. This same openness that allows them to learn language, develop social skills, and acquire knowledge also makes them vulnerable to incorporating suggested experiences into their personal memories. Research has shown that children can develop detailed false memories through surprisingly gentle suggestion. In one study, researchers worked with parents to identify events that had definitely not happened to their children. They then asked the children, over several sessions, to try to remember these fictional events. Initially, most children correctly stated that these things hadn't happened to them, but after repeated encouragement to think harder and try to remember, many began to develop elaborate false memories. The process wasn't dramatic or coercive. Researchers simply provided basic details about supposed events and encouraged children to use their imagination to fill in gaps. They might say something like, "Your mum told me about the time you got your finger caught in a mousetrap. Can you tell me about that?" When children initially said they didn't remember, researchers would respond with gentle encouragement. "That's okay. Sometimes it takes a while to remember. Try to think about what it might have felt like." What happened next was both remarkable and troubling. Many children began to construct detailed memories of these fictional events. They described the pain of the mousetrap, where in the house it happened, what their parents said afterward, how long it took for their finger to feel better. These weren't vague impressions, but rich, emotionally resonant memories, complete with sensory details and narrative coherence. The children weren't lying or trying to please the adults. They genuinely believed these experiences had occurred. When researchers later explained that these events were fictional, many children were surprised, and some even insisted that their memories must be real despite being told otherwise. The false memories had become so thoroughly integrated into their sense of personal history that they felt more authentic than many genuine childhood experiences. This susceptibility to false memory formation in children has profound implications that extend far beyond laboratory settings. In therapeutic contexts, well-meaning counselors might inadvertently create false memories through suggestive questioning designed to help children process traumatic experiences. The assumption that children often forget or suppress difficult memories can lead to techniques that actually implant false recollections of events that never occurred. The legal system faces similar challenges when dealing with child witnesses. Children can provide accurate and valuable testimony about their experiences, but they're also vulnerable to having their memories shaped by the investigative process itself. Repeated interviews, leading questions, or exposure to information about alleged crimes can all contribute to the development of false memories that feel completely authentic to the child experiencing them. The social dynamics surrounding children make them particularly susceptible to memory contamination. Young children naturally want to please authority figures and may unconsciously alter their responses based on what they think adults want to hear. They might initially have no memory of a particular event, but if trusted adults seem to expect them to remember something, they may gradually develop recollections that meet those expectations. The power relationship between children and adults also plays a crucial role. When an adult suggests that something happened, children may assume that the adult has superior knowledge and gradually incorporate the suggested information into their own memories. This isn't conscious deception, but rather a natural response to the social dynamics of childhood, where adults are typically the sources of truth about the world. Perhaps most concerning is how easily these false memories can spread among groups of children. In several documented cases, suggestions made to one child in a classroom or daycare setting have led to the development of similar false memories in other children. The social contagion effect means that false memories can multiply and reinforce themselves through peer interaction, creating scenarios where multiple children develop consistent but entirely fabricated recollections of the same fictional events. The emotional content of false memories in children can be particularly vivid and distressing. Children who develop false memories of traumatic events don't just intellectually accept that these things happened. They experience genuine emotional responses, including fear, sadness, and anxiety. These emotions feel authentic because they are authentic responses to what the child believes to be real experiences. This emotional authenticity creates a feedback loop that strengthens false memories over time. When children feel scared or upset while recalling a false memory, those emotions serve as confirmation that the memory must be real. After all, why would they have such strong feelings about something that never happened? This emotional validation makes false memories increasingly resistant to correction and more likely to persist into adulthood. The developmental trajectory of false memory susceptibility is complex and somewhat counterintuitive. While children are more vulnerable to suggestion-based false memories, they're actually less susceptible to certain types of spontaneous false memories that affect adults. Young children may be less likely to develop false memories based on semantic associations or thematic connections, but they're more vulnerable to memories created through social suggestion and repeated questioning. This pattern reflects the ongoing development of different cognitive systems. As children's semantic knowledge and associative thinking mature, they become more susceptible to certain types of memory errors, while becoming more resistant to others. The specific vulnerabilities shift with age, but the fundamental malleability of memory remains a constant throughout development. The implications of childhood false memory research extend into questions about how we understand child development and trauma recovery. While it's crucial to believe and support children who report traumatic experiences, it's equally important to recognize that their memories can be influenced by well-meaning adults who inadvertently shape their recollections through suggestive questioning or therapeutic techniques. This doesn't mean that children's reports of trauma should be dismissed, or that childhood abuse doesn't occur. Rather, it highlights the need for specialized approaches that minimize the risk of memory contamination, while still allowing children to report genuine experiences. Techniques such as open-ended questioning, avoiding repeated interviews, and documenting children's initial statements can help preserve the integrity of their memories. The study of false memories in children has also revealed important insights about the relationship between imagination and memory throughout development. Young children often have rich fantasy lives and active imaginations, which are crucial for cognitive and emotional development. However, this same imaginative capacity can make it difficult for them to distinguish between events they've imagined and events they've actually experienced. Dreams present a particular challenge for children's source monitoring abilities. Young children may have difficulty distinguishing between events that occurred in dreams and events that happened in waking life. A vivid nightmare might be remembered as a real experience, or conversely, a real event might be dismissed as just a dream. This confusion can contribute to the development of false memories, particularly when adults ask children to distinguish between different types of mental experiences. The social and cultural context in which children develop also influences their susceptibility to false memories. Children from families or communities where certain types of stories are frequently told may be more likely to incorporate elements of these narratives into their personal memories. Cultural beliefs about childhood, trauma, and memory can all shape how children's recollections are formed and interpreted. Educational settings present both risks and opportunities related to children's memory development. Teachers and other school personnel need to be aware of how their questioning and interaction styles might influence children's memories. At the same time, educational programs can help children develop better source monitoring skills and critical thinking abilities that may make them less susceptible to false memory formation. The research on children's false memories has also contributed to our understanding of how memory systems develop throughout childhood and adolescence. The gradual maturation of the prefrontal cortex and other brain regions involved in executive control and reality monitoring affects children's ability to evaluate the source and accuracy of their memories. This developmental process continues well into adolescence and early adulthood, meaning that even teenagers may be more susceptible to certain types of memory errors than fully mature adults. Perhaps most importantly, the study of false memories in children reminds us that memory is not a passive recording system, but an active, constructive process that begins early in life. Children are not simply small adults with less experience. They have qualitatively different cognitive systems that process and store information in unique ways. Understanding these differences is crucial for anyone who works with children in therapeutic, educational, or legal contexts. The vulnerability of children to false memory formation also highlights the enormous responsibility that adults have in their interactions with young people. Every conversation, every question, every suggestion has the potential to shape a child's understanding of their own experiences. This isn't meant to create paralyzing anxiety about interacting with children, but rather to encourage mindful, careful approaches that respect the malleability of developing minds. As we consider the implications of childhood false memory research, it's worth noting that these findings don't diminish the importance of listening to children or taking their reports seriously. Children can and do provide accurate testimony about their experiences, and they deserve to be heard and supported when they report difficult or traumatic events. The goal is not to dismiss children's accounts, but to understand the factors that might influence their accuracy and to develop approaches that maximize the likelihood of preserving authentic memories while minimizing the risk of contamination. The same cognitive flexibility that makes children vulnerable to false memories also enables their remarkable capacity for learning, creativity, and adaptation. The openness to experience that can lead to memory errors is also what allows children to acquire language, develop social skills, and learn about the world around them. This paradox reminds us that cognitive vulnerabilities and strengths are often two sides of the same coin. The research on children's false memories also provides insights into the broader question of how we should understand memory and truth throughout the lifespan. If even young children can develop detailed false memories that feel completely authentic, what does this tell us about the nature of memory itself? How should we balance the need to believe and support individuals with the recognition that memory can be fallible? These questions don't have simple answers, but they point toward the importance of approaching memory with both compassion and skepticism. Children who develop false memories aren't being deceptive. They're experiencing normal consequences of how developing memory systems work. Adults who inadvertently contribute to false memory formation aren't necessarily being careless. They're operating within social and professional contexts that may not fully account for memory's malleability. Understanding the development of memory throughout childhood also sheds light on how our adult memory systems came to be. The same processes that make children vulnerable to false memories continue to operate throughout our lives, though typically in more subtle ways. The openness to suggestion, the difficulty with source monitoring, and the tendency to fill in gaps with plausible details don't disappear with maturity. They simply become more sophisticated and less obvious. As you drift towards sleep tonight, perhaps you might reflect on your own childhood memories and wonder which ones might have been shaped by the same processes that create false memories in laboratory settings. Which of your earliest recollections might have been influenced by family stories, repeated questioning, or the natural tendency of developing minds to construct coherent narratives from fragmentary experiences? These reflections aren't meant to undermine the value of childhood memories, but rather to inspire a gentle appreciation for the remarkable creativity of developing minds. The child's brain that can construct detailed false memories is the same brain that can learn to read, develop empathy, and create imaginary worlds filled with wonder and possibility. The vulnerability to memory errors is inseparable from the extraordinary capacity for growth, learning, and adaptation that characterizes human development. In recognizing the special susceptibilities of children to false memory formation, we gain not only practical knowledge for protecting young minds, but also deeper insights into the nature of memory itself. Children serve as windows into the constructive processes that shape all human recollection, reminding us that memory is not about perfect preservation, but about the ongoing creation of meaning from the beautiful, chaotic flow of experience. The developing mind, with all its vulnerabilities and remarkable capabilities, reflects the broader truth about human consciousness. We are all, regardless of age, active participants in constructing our understanding of reality. The false memories that children can develop so readily are simply more obvious examples of the creative, interpretive processes that shape all human recollection. In understanding how children's memories can be influenced and altered, we gain insight into the fundamental nature of memory as a constructive, social, and deeply human phenomenon. As we settle deeper into this exploration of memory's deceptions, let's drift toward a particularly fascinating realm where the boundaries between neuroscience and everyday experience begin to blur. We're going to examine what happens inside your brain when false memories take root, and why these fabricated experiences can feel more real than genuine recollections. Imagine, if you will, that you could peer inside someone's head as they recall a cherished childhood memory. You might expect to see different patterns of brain activity for true memories versus false ones, perhaps some neural signature that could definitively distinguish between authentic experiences and manufactured recollections. The reality, however, is far more unsettling and elegant than such a simple distinction would suggest. When neuroscientists first began studying the brain activity associated with memory recall, they discovered something that challenged fundamental assumptions about how we distinguish truth from fiction in our own minds. Using advanced imaging techniques, researchers could observe the neural networks that activate when people remember events from their past. What they found was both remarkable and deeply troubling. False memories and true memories activate essentially the same brain regions with nearly identical patterns of neural activity. This discovery has profound implications that ripple through everything from courtroom proceedings to therapeutic practices. It means that even the most sophisticated brain imaging technology currently available cannot reliably distinguish between a genuine memory and a false one. The subjective experience of remembering feels identical whether you're recalling something that actually happened or something your mind has constructed from whole cloth. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain that serves as memory's master librarian, treats false memories with the same neural respect it gives to authentic experiences. When you recall being lost in that shopping mall as a child, even though it never happened, your hippocampus activates the same networks it would use to retrieve a genuine childhood experience. The emotional centers of your brain, particularly the amygdala, respond with appropriate feelings based on the content of the memory, regardless of its factual accuracy. This neural equivalence helps explain why false memories can be so convincing and persistent. From your brain's perspective, there's no meaningful difference between remembering something that happened and remembering something that feels like it happened. The same networks fire, the same neurotransmitters flow, and the same sense of familiarity emerges. Your confidence in a false memory can be just as strong, if not stronger, than your confidence in accurate recollections. The process of memory formation itself provides clues about why false memories can feel so authentic. When you experience something, different aspects of that experience are encoded across various brain regions. Visual information is processed in the occipital cortex, sounds in the auditory cortex, emotions in the limbic system, and spatial context in the hippocampus. These distributed traces are then linked together by neural connections that allow you to reconstruct the experience later. But here's where things get interesting. The same distributed encoding system that creates genuine memories can also create false ones. When you imagine an event, hear a detailed story, or repeatedly think about something that might have happened, you're activating many of the same brain regions that would be involved in actually experiencing those events. Over time, these imagined or suggested experiences can create neural traces that are indistinguishable from those formed by genuine experiences. The strength of these neural traces depends not on their accuracy, but on how often they're activated and how emotionally significant they feel. A false memory that you've recalled and discussed many times can actually become more firmly established in your brain than a genuine memory that you rarely think about. The neural pathways associated with the false memory become more robust through repetition, making it feel increasingly real and familiar. This repetition effect helps explain why false memories often become more vivid and detailed over time, rather than fading as you might expect fabricated experiences to do. Each time you recall a false memory, you're not just accessing stored information, you're actively reconstructing the experience and potentially adding new details. These additions become incorporated into the memory trace, making it richer and more convincing with each recall. The emotional component of false memories is particularly fascinating from a neurobiological perspective. When you recall a false memory of a traumatic or emotionally significant event, your brain's emotional systems respond as if the event actually occurred. Your amygdala releases stress hormones, your heart rate might increase, and you might experience genuine fear, sadness, or anxiety. These physiological responses feel authentic because they are authentic responses to what your brain believes to be a real memory. This emotional authenticity creates a feedback loop that strengthens false memories. The strong emotional response serves as internal validation that the memory must be real. After all, your brain seems to be saying, "Why would you have such intense feelings about something that never happened?" This emotional confirmation makes false memories particularly resistant to correction and helps explain why people often refuse to believe that their vivid recollections could be inaccurate. The social brain networks also play a crucial role in maintaining false memories. When you share a false memory with others, especially if they validate or corroborate it, the social reward systems in your brain activate. This social confirmation provides additional neural reinforcement for the false memory, making it feel more credible and authentic. The same brain networks that evolved to help us bond with others and maintain social relationships can inadvertently strengthen fabricated recollections. Interestingly, the confidence you feel in a memory is processed by different brain regions than the memory itself. The areas involved in metacognition, your thinking about thinking, can generate strong feelings of certainty about memories regardless of their accuracy. This means you can feel absolutely confident about a completely false memory, not because you're deceiving yourself, but because the neural systems that generate confidence operate independently from those that determine accuracy. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive functions like critical thinking and reality monitoring, plays a complex role in false memory formation. While it can sometimes help you evaluate the plausibility of memories and detect inconsistencies, it can also contribute to false memory creation by filling in gaps with plausible details and creating coherent narratives from fragmentary information. As you sleep, your brain continues to process and consolidate memories, potentially altering them in the process. During REM sleep, the same brain networks that are active during memory recall can reactivate, potentially leading to the incorporation of dream content into waking memories. This sleep-related memory processing can blur the boundaries between experienced events, imagined scenarios, and dreams, contributing to the formation of false memories that feel authentic upon waking. The plasticity of neural networks means that false memories can become as deeply ingrained as genuine ones. The synaptic connections that encode false memories can strengthen over time, becoming as robust as those associated with real experiences. In some cases, false memories may even become more strongly encoded than authentic ones, particularly if they're emotionally significant or frequently recalled. This neural plasticity also means that false memories can influence future memory formation. Once a false memory is established, it can serve as a framework for interpreting new experiences, potentially leading to additional memory distortions. Your brain uses existing memories to help make sense of new information, so false memories can act as seeds for further inaccuracies. The timing of memory formation is also crucial from a neurobiological perspective. Memories formed during periods of high stress or emotional arousal may be more susceptible to distortion because stress hormones can interfere with normal encoding processes. Conversely, memories formed in calm, supportive environments may be more accurate, though they're still subject to the normal processes of reconstruction and potential falsification. The development of false memories often involves the same neural mechanisms that make memory adaptive and useful. The brain's tendency to fill in gaps, connect disparate pieces of information, and create coherent narratives from incomplete data serves important functions in normal memory operation. These same processes can create false memories when applied to suggested or imagined experiences. Understanding the neuroscience of false memories also reveals why they can be so difficult to correct once formed. Attempting to suppress or forget a false memory can actually strengthen it through a process called the ironic effect of mental control. The more you try not to think about something, the more likely you are to think about it, and each activation strengthens the neural pathways associated with the memory. The mirror neuron system, which activates when you observe others' actions or emotions, may also contribute to false memory formation. When you hear detailed accounts of others' experiences or watch vivid depictions of events, your mirror neurons can create neural activity similar to what you would experience if you were actually participating in those events. Over time, this vicarious neural activity could contribute to false memories of personal involvement in events you only witnessed or heard about. The default mode network, a set of brain regions that's active when your mind is at rest, also plays a role in memory reconstruction. This network is involved in autobiographical thinking and self-referential processing, and its activity during quiet moments might contribute to the gradual transformation of memories over time. As your mind wanders and reflects on past experiences, the default mode network might inadvertently alter those memories, adding new details or changing existing ones. Recent research has also revealed that the brain networks involved in memory and imagination overlap significantly. When you imagine a possible past event or try to fill in gaps in your memory, you're activating many of the same neural circuits that would be involved in recalling a genuine experience. This overlap explains why imagined events can sometimes feel as real as remembered ones, and can gradually transform into false memories that feel authentic. The study of false memories from a neuroscience perspective ultimately reveals that these fabricated experiences aren't glitches or malfunctions in the memory system. They're natural consequences of how the brain is designed to work. The same neural mechanisms that make memory flexible, adaptive, and meaningful also make it vulnerable to distortion and fabrication. This understanding has important implications for how we think about memory, truth, and personal identity. If our brains cannot reliably distinguish between true and false memories at the neural level, then the subjective experience of remembering may be less about accessing the past and more about constructing meaningful narratives in the present. The false memories that feel so real aren't signs of a broken system, but rather evidence of the brain's remarkable capacity for creativity and meaning-making. As you contemplate these neural realities of false memory, perhaps there's something both humbling and awe-inspiring in recognizing that your brain is constantly engaged in creative acts of reconstruction. Every memory you access, every story you tell about your past involves the same neural processes that can create entirely fabricated experiences. The boundary between remembering and imagining may be far more porous at the level of brain activity than our subjective experience would suggest. The implications of this neural equivalence between true and false memories extend beyond individual psychology to questions about legal evidence, therapeutic practice, and social truth. If even advanced neuroscience cannot definitively distinguish between authentic and fabricated memories, then we must rely on external verification, corroborating evidence, and careful investigation, rather than simply trusting the subjective certainty that false memories can provide. Yet there's also something beautiful in recognizing that the same neural creativity that can generate false memories also enables imagination, empathy, and the rich inner life that makes human consciousness so remarkable. The brain that can construct convincing false memories is the same brain that can imagine possible futures, understand others' experiences, and create meaning from the chaos of existence. As you drift towards sleep tonight, your brain will continue its remarkable work of memory consolidation, potentially altering existing memories and creating new associations between experiences. This ongoing neural activity isn't a flaw to be corrected, but rather an essential feature of how consciousness operates. The false memories that might emerge from this process are testament to the brain's extraordinary capacity for creativity, meaning-making, and the endless human project of constructing coherent stories from the fragments of experience. In understanding the neuroscience of false memories, we gain not just scientific knowledge, but also a deeper appreciation for the remarkable, if fallible, organ that creates our subjective experience of reality. The brain that lies to you about your past is the same brain that allows you to learn, love, dream, and find meaning in existence. Its deceptions are inseparable from its most extraordinary capabilities, reminding us that truth and creativity, accuracy and meaning are often intertwined in ways that defy simple categorization. The neural networks firing in your head right now as you process this information are the same networks that create and maintain your most cherished memories, whether they're factually accurate or beautifully false. In recognizing this, we can approach our own memories with both appropriate skepticism and gentle appreciation for the remarkable creativity of the mind that makes us who we are. And so, dear weary researcher, we arrive at the gentle end of our journey through the labyrinth of memory, having discovered that the brain nestled between your ears has indeed been lying to you your entire life. But what a beautiful, necessary lie it is. We've wandered together through the strange landscape of memory reconstruction, where every act of remembering is also an act of creative rewriting. We've seen how false memories can be planted like seeds in fertile minds, growing into rich, detailed experiences that feel as authentic as any genuine recollection. We've explored the collective fabrications that bind communities together in shared false beliefs, and witnessed the sobering consequences when these memory errors enter courtrooms and destroy lives. We've observed the particular vulnerability of children, whose developing minds are especially susceptible to suggestion and confusion about the sources of their mental experiences. And we've peered into the neural networks themselves, discovering that false memories activate the same brain regions as genuine ones, making them neurologically indistinguishable from authentic experiences. Perhaps most remarkably, we've learned that this fallibility isn't a flaw in the system, but rather a feature. The same reconstructive processes that can create entirely false memories also allow you to learn from experience, adapt to new situations, and extract meaning from the chaos of existence. Your memory system didn't evolve to be a perfect recording device. It evolved to be a meaning-making machine, constantly weaving the threads of experience into the tapestry of personal narrative. This understanding invites a kind of gentle humility about the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we've been. Your most cherished childhood memories, your clearest recollections of significant life events, your strongest convictions about your personal history. All of these may be partly or entirely fabricated by the same creative processes we've been exploring tonight. But this isn't cause for despair or existential crisis. Instead, it's an invitation to appreciate the remarkable creativity of human consciousness. You are, in a very real sense, a collaborative author in the ongoing story of your life, working with your brain to construct meaningful narratives from the raw material of experience. Whether these stories are factually accurate may be less important than their ability to provide coherence, meaning, and connection to the larger human experience. The false memories that feel so real aren't evidence of a broken mind, but rather testament to the extraordinary capacity for creativity and meaning-making that defines human consciousness. They remind us that we are storytelling creatures, constantly engaged in the beautiful, impossible task of making sense of existence through the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. As you lie there now, perhaps drowsy from our gentle exploration, consider that every memory you've ever formed, every story you've ever told about your past, has been shaped by these same reconstructive processes. The boundary between remembering and imagining, between experience and construction, may be far more fluid than you ever imagined, and perhaps that's perfectly fine. Perhaps the goal isn't to achieve perfect accuracy in our recollections, but rather to create meaningful narratives that help us navigate the present and imagine possible futures. The false memories that populate your personal history are part of the continuous creative act of being human, evidence of the mind's remarkable ability to find patterns, create connections, and construct meaning from the beautiful chaos of existence. Your brain isn't lying to you maliciously. It's doing something far more interesting and important. It's helping you create a coherent sense of self from the scattered fragments of experience. It's weaving together perception, emotion, imagination, and knowledge into the rich tapestry of consciousness that makes you who you are. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, perhaps you can find peace in this gentle deception. The memories that will visit you in dreams, the recollections that will surface in quiet moments, the stories you'll tell yourself about your past, all of these are part of the ongoing creative collaboration between you and your remarkable brain. Whether they're perfectly accurate or beautifully false, they're yours. They're part of the unique narrative that is your life, the singular story that only you can tell. And in recognizing the constructed nature of memory, perhaps we can approach our own stories with both appropriate skepticism and deep appreciation for the creative processes that make human consciousness so extraordinarily rich and meaningful. The brain that's been lying to you all these years is the same brain that allows you to love, to learn, to dream, and to find meaning in existence. Its deceptions are inseparable from its most remarkable capabilities, and perhaps in the end, that's the most beautiful truth of all. And so, as we settle into these final quiet moments together, let's take one last gentle drift through the implications of what we've discovered. For in understanding that your brain has been crafting stories about your past, we uncover something profound about the nature of human experience itself. Think for a moment about the weight this knowledge carries. Every family story passed down through generations, every historical account that shapes our understanding of the world, every cultural memory that binds communities together. All of these are filtered through the same reconstructive processes we've been exploring. The collective memory of humanity itself is built upon the same fallible foundation as your personal recollections. This doesn't diminish the value of these shared stories. Instead, it reveals something beautiful about how human beings create meaning together. We are all participants in a vast, collaborative narrative, each contributing our own imperfect memories to the larger tapestry of human experience. The stories may not be perfectly accurate, but they serve something more important than accuracy. They create connection, understanding, and a shared sense of identity. Consider how this understanding might change the way you approach your own memories. Perhaps you can hold them more lightly now, appreciating them not for their perfect fidelity to past events, but for their role in shaping who you are today. The embarrassing moment from childhood that still makes you cringe, the triumphant achievement that fills you with pride, the loss that taught you about grief, all of these memories have contributed to your sense of self, regardless of how accurately they reflect what actually happened. There's something remarkably freeing in this recognition. If your memories are already partially constructed, then you have more agency in shaping your personal narrative than you might have imagined. You can choose which stories to emphasize, which interpretations to embrace, which meanings to extract from the raw material of experience. You are not a passive victim of your past, but an active participant in creating the story of who you are. This doesn't mean you should deliberately fabricate memories or ignore the importance of truth. Rather, it suggests that the relationship between memory and identity is more creative and collaborative than we often realize. Your brain is constantly working to create coherence and meaning from the fragments of experience, and you can participate consciously in this process. The therapeutic implications of this understanding are profound. If memories are reconstructive, then healing doesn't necessarily require recovering perfect recollections of past events. Instead, it might involve helping people construct more adaptive, empowering narratives about their experiences. The goal isn't to uncover the exact truth of what happened, but to create stories that promote growth, resilience, and well-being. This perspective also offers comfort to those who struggle with traumatic memories. The painful recollections that haunt you may be real in their emotional impact, but they're also constructions that can potentially be reshaped through careful, compassionate work. The past doesn't have to imprison you in unchanging narratives of suffering or limitation. As we consider the broader implications of memory's reconstructive nature, we might also reflect on how this knowledge should influence our interactions with others. When someone shares a memory with you, whether in casual conversation or in more formal settings, you're not just hearing their account of past events. You're witnessing their brain's creative interpretation of experience, filtered through emotion, expectation, and countless subsequent influences. This understanding invites patience and compassion when memories conflict. When family members remember the same event differently, when witnesses provide contradictory accounts, when historical narratives clash, perhaps we can approach these discrepancies with curiosity rather than judgment. Each person's memory reflects their unique perspective and the particular way their brain has reconstructed experience. The educational implications are equally significant. If memory is reconstructive, then learning isn't simply about storing information, but about integrating new knowledge into existing frameworks of understanding. Each time students recall information, they're potentially altering it slightly, incorporating their current understanding and emotional state into their recollections of what they learned. This suggests that effective education should account for memory's malleable nature, using techniques that promote accurate encoding while recognizing that perfect retention is neither possible nor necessary. The goal becomes helping students develop frameworks for understanding that can accommodate new information and adapt over time. In our digital age, where information is constantly available and our external memory systems grow ever more sophisticated, the role of biological memory may be shifting. Perhaps we're moving toward a model where human memory serves less as a storage system and more as a meaning-making system, focused on creating coherent narratives and extracting significance from the vast sea of available information. This evolution might actually play to memory's strengths. If our brains are naturally designed to construct meaning rather than preserve perfect records, then perhaps we should embrace this tendency rather than fight it. We might focus on developing skills in interpretation, synthesis, and narrative construction while relying on external systems for precise information storage. Yet even as we adapt to new technologies and new understandings of memory, the fundamental human need for coherent, personal narratives remains constant. We will always be storytelling creatures, always seeking to make sense of our experiences through the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we've been. The false memories that populate these stories aren't obstacles to overcome, but rather evidence of the mind's remarkable creativity. They demonstrate the brain's commitment to creating meaning, even when the raw material of experience is incomplete or ambiguous. They show us that consciousness isn't passive reception, but active creation. As you prepare to let sleep carry you away from these contemplations, perhaps you can appreciate the irony that this very exploration of memory's unreliability will itself become a memory, subject to all the reconstructive processes we've discussed. By tomorrow, you may remember this conversation differently than it actually unfolded. You might emphasize different points, forget certain details, or unconsciously weave in elements from other sources, and that's perfectly fine. The value of our journey together lies not in your perfect retention of every fact and figure, but in the way these ideas might influence how you think about memory, truth, and the nature of human experience. If these concepts help you approach your own memories with a bit more curiosity and a bit less absolute certainty, then they've served their purpose. The brain that has been creating your memories throughout your life, accurate and false alike, is the same brain that has allowed you to love, to learn, to imagine, and to find meaning in existence. Its capacity for deception is inseparable from its capacity for creativity. Its tendency toward error is linked to its remarkable flexibility. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, that same brain will continue its work of memory consolidation, potentially altering existing memories and creating new associations between experiences. Dreams may blur the boundaries between memory and imagination even further, creating new neural connections that could influence how you remember both this conversation and countless other experiences. There's something wonderfully poetic about falling asleep to thoughts about memory and consciousness. As you transition from waking awareness to the strange symbolic world of dreams, you're experiencing firsthand the fluid boundaries between different states of consciousness, different types of mental experience. In dreams, the same neural networks that create waking memories will construct elaborate scenarios that feel completely real while you're experiencing them. Upon waking, these dream experiences may feel obviously fictional, or they might linger with a strange sense of authenticity that makes you wonder whether they really happened. This nightly journey into altered consciousness serves as a gentle reminder that the boundary between real and constructed experience is far more permeable than our waking minds typically recognize. Every night, your brain demonstrates its remarkable capacity for creating vivid, meaningful experiences from pure neural activity. So rest well, knowing that the mind that has been crafting your memories is also the mind that dreams, that imagines, that creates meaning from the beautiful chaos of existence. Whether its creations are factually accurate or creatively reconstructed matters less than their ability to help you navigate the complex journey of being human. Your memories, true and false alike, are part of the ongoing story you're writing about who you are. They're evidence of your brain's tireless work to create coherence, meaning, and identity from the raw material of experience. They're testament to the remarkable creativity of human consciousness and the endless human project of making sense of existence through the stories we tell ourselves. Sleep peacefully, gentle dreamer, knowing that even in sleep, your remarkable brain continues its work of weaving experience into memory, memory into meaning, and meaning into the rich tapestry of consciousness that makes you uniquely, beautifully, imperfectly human. Until we meet again in another quiet corner of curiosity, rest well, and may your dreams be filled with the gentle recognition that truth and story, accuracy and meaning are often more beautifully intertwined than we ever dared imagine. Good night.